Hello, my name is John. Hey, the purpose of this video is to give an overview of the Wildcat Activity and Vocational Agriculture Community Center. Specifically, today I want to talk about the potential return on investment for the taxpayer. I've done this independently. These are really representing my own opinions. Nobody has asked me to do this, but when I was trying to learn and educate myself a little bit more about what this proposed levy was about, I typically struggle to support many levies. I do that because I need to see some kind of return for the taxpayer, not just any kind of frivolous spending. So I was able to kind of do a deep dive on the proposed community center and what it might do for the community, and specifically, which will be the topic of this video, is how it returns value to the taxpayer. So this is one thing that I tend to do. I built some slides on this just so I could explain it. Um, I'll start by just giving an overview of my understanding of what the Vocational Agriculture and Community Center is. It's really a flexible facility. There should be prints or floor plans that are up online. I understand that some people are asking for detailed prints, but personally, as a taxpayer, if a school went out and paid $250,000 for detailed prints before passing the levy, I would think that would be irresponsible. But I have seen a floor plan, and I know that there is a need for community involvement to help guide the facility to be all that it can be. But essentially, it's a flexible space. The number one priority here is to bring vocational agriculture back to Napoleon, which I asked some questions on. There are at least 30 students that have open enrolled out of the Napoleon district that are in vocational agriculture programs in those communities. So when you think about the individual funding for that student being between $5,000 and $7,000, there is a massive amount of revenue that we're missing out on by forcing kids to leave our community to go take those programs elsewhere. I also know that the aspirations of this program and this facility support a lot of other stakeholders, specifically the arts. I personally would love to see things like home economics and industrial tech brought back into the teaching realm. Within the Napoleon district, 30% of our kids do not choose to go on to college. They go into some kind of vocation, or they start their own business, or they may be computer coding and self-taught. So I think it's important to understand there's changes in the way we need to educate, not just getting kids prepared for college, but getting kids prepared for life. So one of the things that I like about this is that it is adjacent to the high school. So it's been designed in a way that they are separate buildings but adjacent. And why I like this is because you have the ability to leverage all the existing assets of the high school and bring them into the community center. And I know the goal for the community center is to be open between 16 and 19 hours a day, available to the public. So yes, that means the students would have to exit through the doors and come back into the high school. But I think with the security measures, this is pretty easy solve. But it also allows the community the use of the pool, and that is in the floor plan of the design, is that there would be the ability to delineate access between the pool for the community center and pool with access from the high school. So pretty intuitive. I do like that you're leveraging your existing resources and not starting net new. So my understanding is, if you live within this map that is up on the screen right now, you have free access to the community center. And I don't mean free as in you're not paying for it through your taxes, but what I'm saying is you have the ability to go utilize an asset that you as a taxpayer have contributed to. And I really think this is the right way to go. So when you think about that, there are memberships to a YMCA that can cost upwards of $800 for a family and are not located close to our community. That becomes a challenge. So I think this becomes a real benefit that allows not only the people that are around Napoleon, but the people that are in the outlying areas. I personally grew up in Florida, and I know that there are a lot of people walking around that little village and how beautiful it is. But in February, December, January, you just can't do that. And especially our neighbors out in McClure. I think that they would have a real benefit to a facility like this. And what I want to show is that there is a return on investment for the taxpayer. And by return on investment, what I mean is that the aggregate number of taxes that we would be paying in through the levy would be surpassed by the potential new revenue generation from property taxes via growth. So I know the number one goal here is to get the vocational agriculture program up and running. I know that the initial classes they're offering have had very, very strong support, and a lot of the kids are excited, including my own son. So, but this facility really needs to start to flex back to the idea that not every kid is going to go to a 4-year, state university, but start to focus on some of those kids that can be in between, maybe a 2-year degree, or choose not to go to college and want to start making money right away. I know we have a great vocational program at 4 County, but there is a need to do this right in our backyards and make sure that we're leaders in programming and not followers. So I think that is well demonstrated by the amount of kids that are already signed up for the classes before this building is even built. So the community center portion, in addition to all the flex space, the AR, VR lab, the access for the arts community and theater and musicals to get access to the building, there also are some public facilities, right? Running track, basketball courts, fitness equipment. I do like this aspect of it. And having lived in a community that had a community center, I can tell you that in November, December, January, February, March, April, and sometimes even into May, it was the busiest place in the entire city. So people could come, they could bring their grandkids, they could bring their children, they could just come walk the track in between calls or meetings. And it really was something that was a huge community asset. And members of that community center have agreed to help guide us if this levy passes. So I'm going to shift now to talk about the return on investment. And the key takeaway here is this is really a reinvestment. So Napoleon Area Schools has enacted some method to reduce our taxes by 1.6 mils. That is correct. They are actually reducing taxes. I know that doesn't happen very often, but that is fact. It is truth. So they only got this finalized recently, which is why you're seeing such a buzz about the community center now. Is the leadership did not feel comfortable coming out to the community and saying, we want you to support this, but we don't know how much you're going to pay. So once they got this finalized, then the citizens could kind of organize and figure out, do we want to support this, or are we going to struggle to support it? So really, the clear return on investment that I see here is by growing the tax base and attracting and retaining new families. And I'll use myself as an example. We recently moved to the area. We built a home. So we built a home, and that contributes net new property taxes to the community. So every time you do that, it spreads out the tax base a little bit wider. And so one of the objections that I've got to the community center was we don't need it. And I'm going to explain to you on why I think you do need it and you need to do it right now. And that is the demographics of the area. So I pulled this data, it's all publicly available from the state of Ohio. But I think most people realize that the greater Napoleon area has been shrinking for more than a decade. So your population is declining. And without intervention, the state of Ohio projects the population of this area, particularly the county, to decrease by another 1,000 people in the next 5 years. And those declining populations are in the 35 to 55-year-old range. So it's a miracle that Napoleon has low property taxes as it is, comparable to every other school district, but you cannot sustain this. So if these populations continue to leave, you're going to see a dramatic drop in a key demographic. And as I did a kind of a qualitative assessment and started asking people, why are these age groups leaving? It was almost universal response is that the people that are a little bit younger than me or my age, they leave for other opportunity, or they leave for other school districts or other community assets. And what's happening is the reason why you see that all the way up to the 55 age demographic is because their parents go with them to be with their kids or their grandchildren. So this is what probably hit me the hardest when you're talking about uprooting entire family trees from community. Families that have been in Napoleon for generations are now pulling up and just completely leaving because the community just simply doesn't have what they are looking for. But we have an advantage. So we have a plan, and I think this plan is pretty darn good. And if we execute, there is an opportunity here to use this building as an activation energy to get a true return on investment for the community, so that you are actually getting out more than you put in. That's what I mean by return on investment. So that group of taxpayers, 35 to 55, that age demographic pays 50% of the taxes. So this is really a situation for me where if you're not reinvesting in the community in some manner that is going to attract families to the area, then you're going to hit a point where you can't drop your population anymore. Your taxes will go up either way. So you're not going to eliminate the core functions of the city, like you need firefighters, you need police officers, you need refuse, you need roads, you need plumbing and water. And so your tax bill for the general operations of the area is not going to decrease. But if your taxpayers are leaving, you're going to have to pay more, because now instead of having 10 people to pay the bill, you only have 8 people to pay the bill. And that will be a big problem. That will be hard to recover from. So I like that this levy is coming up at a time where the community is not under duress. And it's really a choice for you as the taxpayer to decide, do I want to reinvest with a clear return on investment for myself and the community, or would you like to just use hope as a strategy? I have a really hard time using hope as a strategy. So what I did was the analysis that we have the opportunity, and I know for a fact and have spoken with these entities, they have met with our city leadership. There are outside groups that are considering Napoleon for outside investment. They have independently determined that the super districts around the Toledo area are not appealing to a lot of families. I've talked to those families, and some of them feel like their kid is a number. Some of them feel like they can't be a 3-sport athlete because just to make one team, they have to practice that sport year round. And it's getting to a point where, as attractive as those community resources are and having, beautiful areas along the riverfront, is that they want a smaller district. They want these small town values like Napoleon has. And I recognize that a lot of the people that will struggle with passing this levy are also the people that built the culture of why I moved here. So I don't do this lightly, but so I sat down and calculated, because for me, I have to be able to look somebody in the eye and say, there is a clear return on investment here if we can execute. So, and what I determined was approximately 4 to 5 new homes per year generates enough property tax to offset the cost of the building over the period of time that we're looking at. So 4 to 5 houses is not a huge obstacle. Those new tax revenues would bring new families into Napoleon, or families that have previously left the community back in. And this generates enough new property taxes that you have a pathway to cover the entire cost of this building. And so, again, I look at this as an activation energy. So the interesting thing here is that Napoleon has some real unfair advantages. And I've had the opportunity to talk to community leaders outside of Napoleon, but in the greater Toledo area. Business people, the entrepreneurial services providers. I work with regional growth partners in the past, but Napoleon has these unfair advantages. And so you have a high probability that if you put a draw in where you say you can move to Napoleon, they've got the lowest taxes in the area for property taxes. They have brand new school, and they're building a brand new community center that I'm not going to have to pay out of pocket for. The community sees that me as a taxpayer should have a right to use those facilities. So you're saving $800 a year on a potential, membership somewhere else, and you have something in your backyard that you can use, that you can keep. And if I'm somebody who's a little bit older, I think of my grandparents, I'm going to invest in this, yes, because I want to use it, but also because I would like my grandchildren to stay here. I would like for my family to open a yearbook one day and say, "Oh, there was my great grandpa, back in 1998 when he was doing his thing." And when those families leave, that story leaves with them. And that's not what I want to see for this community. So we really looked at how can we leverage this building? And it really is an activation energy. It's not a silver bullet because you have other bullets loaded in the gun on how you can go and tackle this problem and attract families and attract investment in Napoleon. So you have this community center that would be open for 12 to 16 hours per day, but you also have these other assets. You have a developing riverfront that is a huge attraction. People love the outdoors. They love those running trails. They love that businesses are thriving along the riverfront. And also, you have easy access to Toledo and Fort Wayne. In a post-pandemic world, there are not many people that drive into a city or live in a city and go to the same office building 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's fact, well published. So people have these opportunities where they work several days from home or they work exclusively from home, but you still have close enough access to get to Toledo or Fort Wayne. So we think that will bring people from the cities into the smaller communities where they have this small town living. You also have this integrity, as I'll call it. This community has a rich tradition based in agriculture, and you have good values that raise good kids and a lot of successful people. So you also have this trend in the super districts where their taxes are already very high. And I have seen proposals as recently as this week for those super districts have to build additional buildings with levies that are not $20 million or low 20s as Napoleon is proposing, but $200 million. So the highest tax rate will get only higher. And that is a huge opportunity for us to say, hey, take a look at Napoleon. 4 to 5 houses is not exponential growth, and the population in our carrying capacity used to be close to 12,000. So if we're at 8,700 right now, we can stand to take a few more families. And I also know, but I don't completely understand this, so I'm just going to leave it as a bullet point. But there is some changes in the state with the tax, and there's like a additional 10% property rollback at the state level. So when it comes down to cost, I recognize that this is money out of pocket, but this is money well spent and really is money well invested that you eventually see back. So I've had the opportunity to talk to people who are struggling with supporting this. And it really came down to two things. And I'm going to address these two things, but I also want to post a few other videos specifically about the need for things like esports, AR, VR labs. The company that I work with is a huge customer for Microsoft. So I'm currently soliciting them for augmented reality headsets to bring the metaverse to Napoleon, because I think we can get kids jobs in that area, and that's all remote work. So they don't even have to leave. So, but the biggest thing that I've heard is that we don't need it. And I would argue that you do need it because your taxes will increase either way. And the choice really for the taxpayer and the voter is, do I want to reinvest the reduction in taxes that the school is providing me, or do I want to keep that money and continue to watch the population erode? And I saw a little bit of a sobering statistic is that the class size in 10 years, if we don't do something and don't find a strategy to bring families into the community, in 10 years, the graduating class will be about 120 students. This is a more than 50% reduction from my experience here. And I know that this is probably shocking to a lot of people, but those numbers are accurate. They're predicting that the second grade class that will graduate in roughly 10 years will have 120 students in it. So I don't want those kids to leave. I don't want those families to leave. I don't want those kids to grow up and build stories in other communities and forget about Napoleon, because I think there is a real advantage to living here. So the other aspect that I've heard is these vocational programs just simply aren't needed and that every kid goes to college. And I addressed that a little bit, but I disagree with that. I think you're seeing a shift away from people investing their money into a college education into people investing their money into learning a trade, or in combination with, say, a Northwest State Community College, as well as on-the-job experience, and making more money early and getting really good and then starting their own business. So I hope you've appreciated that there is a return on investment for this. I will tell you that this is simply based on property taxes that I calculated this. This does not include the people who come here and the money that they spend. It doesn't count the money that goes to, paying for dance lessons for their kids, or somebody that goes up to Spangler's and gets a burger on a Friday night. It doesn't count the money that those families contribute to a church that they join when they're sitting in a pew on Sunday. It doesn't count their philanthropic activities. So there's really a huge economic impact here, to where when people are struggling to support this, I would just ask them to consider that there is a clear return on investment. Um, I am happy to talk to anybody about this and really break it down and get in depth if you'd like to. I will tell you, I am 42 years old. I do not have the energy nor the time to sit behind social media warriors behind a keyboard. However, if you would like to call me, I would be happy to take a call. If you'd like to join me for a cup of coffee, I'd be happy to sit down and show you everything that I've calculated and how accurate this model is. But I'm probably not going to get involved in the Twitter trains or anything back and forth. And so with that, I will end this video, but I will leave you with this piece. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I will leave you with this one final thing, is that the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is green where you choose to water it. Go Cats.